I lived in an apartment close to downtown, about a mile away. And one morning, my neighbor was struggling with life, and she decided that she no longer wants to be a part of this world. So she lit her couch on fire and went to bed, which is unfortunate. I'm not talking badly of her. We all have our struggles. But the terrible thing is there's 15 other apartments with people living in them connected to hers. So very early in the morning, we hear this banging on our door, my son and I, and somebody's yelling, "Evacuate, evacuate." So we jump up. We're startled. We get our shoes and socks on, pants, and get dressed as fast as we possibly can. And we start heading out. And as we walk out, we see a bunch of cops just everywhere, knocking on doors, telling people to evacuate. It was terrifying. And we come across one of my neighbors, and she had a box, and she asked us to help carry it. And that box was extremely heavy. So we carry it down. We lived on the third floor. We carry it down for her, and she starts to tell us what is in the box. And it's very important documents like a birth certificate and her social security card, among other things, but it was a very heavy box. And she told us why she packs this. And she said that she used to live in Bandelier or in Los Alamos, and she suffered through the fire. I think it was in 1997 or 98. There was a very huge fire in Los Alamos, the Bandelier fire. And so many people lost homes, lost personal belongings, and she was one of those. So she learned her lesson and started packing and has a go box. She expressed how important that was. And you would think that suffering through this person lighting an apartment complex on fire, that I would be better about being prepared. But I'm not, unfortunately. So hopefully you guys can convince me to start packing a go bag, because I need something to give me that push. And the reason I'm bringing this up is obviously today's podcast is about National Preparedness Month, which is in September of every year. So let's talk about that. Welcome to Beyond County Lines.
Beyond County Lines, your community's flow. Santa Fe County updates, everybody wants to know.
Thank you, Daniel. My name is Brad Call. I'm the Emergency Management Director with Santa Fe County.
My name is Angelina Basile. I am a Emergency Management Coordinator for the Office of Emergency Management.
And I am Jeff Folgate, Santa Fe County Fire Departments, today serving as Daniel's co-host.
Yeah, so as you all know, my previous co-host has left the county onto bigger and better things. And now we have Jeff Folgate, which I'm excited for. I've known Jeff for about 5 or 6 years now, right?
Absolutely,
So-
yeah. You know, your story was really, really interesting because you think about an event like that, right? So if you're communal living, being prepared maybe is at a different level than if you would think than maybe that if you're, living in a home by yourself. But either way, a tragedy like that can happen at a moment's notice. And again, it's like, are we really prepared? We talk about certain preparedness, but are we prepared for the things that might happen on a more personal level and not necessarily something catastrophic that happens with flooding or wildfire or, things like that? But are we prepared for the smaller events that would impact us just as much?
Right. That's a great question. And I am not prepared for anything. I wasn't brought up or taught to prepare for any sort of emergency. My dad was a firefighter for Los Alamos County. He retired as a firefighter.
You know, Daniel, your question, and Jeff, your comments really bring home the idea of personal preparedness and being ready personally as an individual and as a family for those unforeseen events. You never know when something's going to happen. Unfortunately, a timer doesn't go off on our phones. A clock doesn't get set when an emergency happens. So personal preparedness for your family and as an individual is paramount in everything. And you illustrated it perfectly by having those documents ready, by having those items that you need to get by for the first 72 hours, and hopefully, not more than that, but up to a month away from your home. And if you lose everything, what have you done to prepare yourselves for that loss? So I really appreciate your story.
Yeah, thanks. It was a terrifying experience when it happened, but now it's very interesting for sure.
And you're not alone for sure for not being prepared. A lot of people aren't prepared. Um, there are even weak points in some of our readiness kits as well because you can't plan for everything. And it's hard to determine what you're going to need if you don't know what's going to happen. So there are always weak points in it, but the more prepared you can make yourself, the more prepared you will be.
Thanks for telling on us, Angelina. We were supposed to be the Office of Emergency Management. Totally prepared for everything. But no, she is correct.
Yeah.
She is correct. That's the way we all have gaps. We all have things that we need to work on. We need to analyze this on a regular basis to make sure that things are up to date, current, and ready to go for anything we may face. Again, there's going to be no timer. There's going to be no at 10 o'clock this morning, this is going to happen.
We talk about go bags and things like that, but thinking this through, do you have a go box, whether it's a plastic bin or something where you have those important documents in so that you can just grab it and get it out of the way of danger, whether it's your house or whether it's an apartment or what have you, something that you can easily grab, throw into your vehicle if you need to, that you can take off with it. So it doesn't necessarily need to be, cloth bag. It could be a nice box that you can just, again, keeping some of those important documents that are so difficult to track back down if you lose them.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned go bag and go box, and I kind of mentioned that in my story, but I didn't say what it was. So would either of you mind telling our listeners and our viewers what is a go bag and what should they have in there?
Well, the term is really a nebulous term. It can mean a lot of different things, and it really is a big thing. What you need to worry about, what you need to consider, what am I going to need for the next 3 days to 4 days? What am I going to need long-term if I cannot return to my house? Well, not only for myself, but for those that come with me. That includes loved ones. That includes pets. That includes any neighbors. Things like medications are often overlooked. Things like, pet supplies that you might need, a collar, a leash, things like that. Documents for your pet. Medical records for your pets are sometimes one of the most overlooked things. But medications for both you and your family and loved ones are really top priority and one of the top things that I recommend. Not only that, but your driver's license, your passport, your birth certificates, things like that you cannot get by, unfortunately, in today's world.
Yeah, it's really easy to go online and look at the internet and say, this is exactly what I need in my go bag. But it's not quite that simple, only because each person is different. Of everyone here, I'm the only one wearing glasses. If I lose my glasses, I'm going to be at a much bigger disadvantage. So it might be important for me to have an extra pair of glasses, whereas you guys might not need it. And medications, as you said, it's really important that the go bags are personalized for everyone making it.
Thinking about also prescriptions, right? So maybe you lose the glasses, but you at least have a prescription that you can go get filled. Same with pets that Brad was talking about. Do you have shot records for your pets? Because you may have to house them somewhere where you need to show shot records and in order for them to be housed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm curious right now because we have Jeff here, and we've done videos on Ready, Set, Go, and we have Preparedness Month, and obviously those two get tied together in some way. Could you explain what that would look like? Because you also have, and maybe we can talk about the evacuation zones too in this little section that we're bringing up
Sure.
here.
I'm going to defer to Jeff to describe the Ready, Set, Go, because one of the biggest things that we're going to encounter in this area is a wildfire. And not only a wildfire directly, but the consequences of that wildfire, the smoke, the evacuation process. So the Ready, Get, Set, Go system is a national system that we utilize here in Santa Fe County. And I'm going to defer that to Jeff to maybe fill us in some of those details.
Sure. I think the first part of that, the Ready, that's on a personal level, right? So that's for homeowners, things that they can do to prepare themselves, to prepare their homes in a defensive type manner. So that if something happens, if you have that wildfire that comes up or is down the road a bit, you've prepared your land or your property in a way that it's protected and it's defensible, most importantly. So how do we make it defensible? Well, making sure that within the first 5 feet, first 10 feet, that we don't have a lot of dead and debris and things like that that are around the property, around the perimeter, next to the house, looking up. We make sure that we don't have, like, we have gutters, making sure we don't have dry leaves or pine needles or things like that within the gutters. Because the experiences have told us what happens a lot of times is it's not that fire that comes right up to, it's the fire that's happening maybe a half a mile down the road that's blowing embers. And so those embers are coming and flying in, and then they're landing, creating those secondary hotspots, creating those secondary fires in and around the property. And so that's one of the things that you want to eliminate. So that would be kind of the ready part. Um, Set is, we briefly talked about it, right? Having documents, having prepackaged boxes and bags or whatever it is that we need on that personal level. So on the set part, are we in a dire situation, or is there one somewhat imminent? So we want to make sure that we are packed and ready to go. And so that would be the set part, right? So having things loaded, having family members notified, making sure already that we've already signed up for something like Alert Santa Fe. And then the go is waiting if you get an official order to go and evacuate. So having on that one, if you prepared properly too, you'll have more than one way out of your residence if you can. So that's the ready, set, go steps, or just in a brief format. It's much more in depth. The nice thing though is anybody can get access to those documents on Ready, Set, Go. We have them on county web pages. I know we have them on our web page. You can download them as a PDF. And then we also have hard copies too that are available for any of our listeners.
Awesome. Thank you. And could you touch on the evacuation zones?
Absolutely. And I really appreciate it, Jeff, you going over the Ready, Set, Go. It's not just wildfires. I mean, that could be any disaster and emergency situation where you would be asked to either leave or shelter in place at your home. People forget the shelter in place and some of the steps you can take. And we could go into great detail on all these things. But in a nutshell, any emergency or, again, unplanned situation could come about, be it a chemical incident, could be a smoke plume from a far-reaching county, could be a shelter in place with a police action, something in your neighborhood. So these Ready, Set, Goes can be applied for a lot of different instances in a lot of different ways. As far as the evacuation, Santa Fe County Office of Emergency Management has set up evacuation zones throughout the county. Now, these evacuation zones are divided the county into quarters. So there's a northwest, a northeast, a southwest, and a southeast. Each of these quadrants, if you will, within the county has its own evacuation zone number. And we're working in close cooperation and coordination with the city of Santa Fe to make sure that those are lined up. And if you were ever given a Ready, Set, Go notification or evacuation or shelter in place, that would be one of the things that would be included in that notice through our Smart 911 and our Alert Santa Fe is what zone is being affected and the zones around it. In addition, we would also have cross streets because not everybody will be familiar with their zones, which will be, when we're all set up, made available on the Office of Emergency Management website and webpage on the county webpage. But regardless of whether or not you know your zone, which I highly encourage you to do, we're going to put those cross streets as well in that Alert Santa Fe and that Smart 911.
How do our listeners right now, if they're Santa Fe County residents, how do they go about today knowing which evacuation zone that they're in?
Thank you very much for the question. It's a very important information. You're going to go to the county website, the public-facing county website. The Office of Emergency Management is under the County Manager tab under Office of Emergency Management. If you look on the right-hand side of the page, there's a bunch of drop-downs or additional tabs that you'll be able to click, and evacuation zones or evacuation zone maps are one of them. Right now it's under construction, so they may or may not be active. It depends on how far along in the process we got when this comes out and when this airs. But the evacuation zones will be easily located on that and very obvious to find.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Jeff, thank you for being my co-host. This is a lot of fun. And thank you for listening and watching us. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and listen to us on Que Suave and Que Dice.
Beyond county lines, your communities flow. Santa Fe County updates every